Hello and welcome to From Our Perspective, Two Therapists, Moms with a Mic. I'm Katie Truax.
I'm Claudia Glassman.
What, you're laughing at me. Did I say it wrong?
Yeah, it's okay. Wait, what'd you say? Two therapist moms and a mic. And I think you said with a mic, but we're also with a mic.
We are. And a mic with a mic, whatever.
It's
Tomato,
late in the
tomato.
day.
It's earlier my time. I have no excuses.
It's only an hour earlier.
That's true.
So
I mean,
today we're talking about,
age,
yeah,
aging,
aging.
getting
How's it
old.
going for you?
Listen, we can blame my forgetfulness of our podcast title on age. I just celebrated a birthday. So there you go.
Yeah. So when someone says aging to you, what are your thoughts?
We're getting
Or what are your
old.
thoughts around aging?
Oh my gosh. It seems, gosh, there's so much, right? It's such a complex paradigm, aging.
Mm,
This
mm,
is a topic you came up with or you offered for us.
yeah.
What had this on your mind to offer this as a topic?
Hmm. Well, actually, my topic, which I don't think is the one I texted you, on my notes here on my little scrap paper, it says aging and it said next to it gracefully.
Oh, I love that.
Um, but that's open to interpretation too. Well, it's on my mind. Obviously, like we're all getting older. Everyone listening to this podcast, like, is getting older. I think there's a lot of moments in my day that I'm reminded of it. Like when you go and you have to fill out your birth date and it's the scrolly thing
Yes.
that you have to like scroll through to get to your date. And I am noticing every time I do it, I'm like, it's getting further and further away. Like I'm scrolling through more crap to get to it. Um, yeah. So I'm reminded of it like all the time. And I have a lot of thoughts on it because there's so much um pressure and there's so much messaging
Mhm,
around aging that I think not all of it's super helpful. And I
mhm,
think a lot of it gets repeated. And I wonder why, right? Like, I don't know.
mhm. Like what's coming to mind as you're thinking about the messaging?
Oh, like everything just, oh, I'm older, my body's crapping out. And like, yes, that might be true, but I also think there's things that we don't do to prevent some of these things,
Uh-huh.
right? Or the obsession with like skincare
Yeah.
products to prevent.
Yeah.
And I love a good skincare product, but right, this idea that it's going to like prevent aging. And then I feel that pressure. And then the other part of me is like, lean into it because the other reality is not everyone gets the luxury to grow old,
That's right. That's
right?
right.
Like, yeah, there's certain things that like, gravity kicks in. I definitely don't look like I did when I was 20, but I also have had two kids and lived life and you know what I mean? And like, not everyone gets that. So we can spend all of our time fighting this process, or we can just kind of lean into it a little, right? But I'm not going to lie, I'm on that line and I flip flop back and forth because I'm also part of the messaging, right? I get the same messages everyone else does around age.
Yeah. So there's good messages and bad messages, right? And then there's messages related to, like you said, our body, our abilities, our physical abilities, related to our mental acuity, right? Related to our appearance. Um, I was also thinking today, knowing that we would be talking about this, about kind of just even this concept of like, what percentage of my time here to do things is done? Well, I've got how many years left on the planet, right? I talk a lot about this with my clients who, I just started a new client who's in her 60s and she's asking herself a lot of questions. And
Mm,
we're talking about like, listen, you have a lot of years, right? From her perspective, I think she feels older, right? And let's imagine she's two-thirds of the way through, but she still has a third left,
yeah.
right? And there's a lot you can do. And this idea of starting to count down or put okay, am I over the hill, right? How many years do I have left in my career, in my body, right?
Mm,
With this strong mind and there's so much that comes with it. Okay, so where do we start? Do we start with good, with the bad, with the physical, with the mental?
No, we start all over the place. I mean, I think the fundamental issue I think that I've started to identify is like, how do we value
Mhm.
the older generations? And do we? And I think if we don't value them, then we look at it going, well, we're approaching that. Oh shit, that's not good. Right? I'm gonna get shoved in a home and they all forget about me. Like, I do think this is like a newer development in terms of like modern societies, the way we live, right? Like we're separated. We're not mixed generations,
Mhm.
right? We live a little more fragmented than we used to. I think, if you think about like years ago, I'm talking about lots of years ago, right? Or in certain cultures where people live more intergenerationally, like maybe they don't feel the same way we do.
Mhm.
Right? Because even as you mentioned your client, right? Like part of that is, okay, yes, I have time to do those things, but will people acknowledge it? Will I be able to? I'm gonna be told I'm too old to do that, right? Or will people not receive it the same way as if I was doing it at 40 or 30 or whatever? Like there is some like ageism, I think, that kind of goes on that we're all subtly aware of. And I think as you kind of start moving through life, you start to realize, oh, I'm getting closer to that. I'm getting closer to that where like my career change doesn't make sense because who's going to hire me because I'm closer to retirement, or I'm more expensive because I'm more seasoned or whatever. Like I think that kind of all plays a role. So you've got like the um maybe more existential part of like, who am I and what's my value in this world? And then you have the like physicality of like, what do I look like? And does my
Yeah,
body work? Does my brain work? Does whatever, right?
right. Well, I love that idea of like the perspective, and I think that gosh, a caution could be found in that, right? Because I remember for myself, I remember when I first started practicing, I was fairly young, I would say. I mean, I was probably mid 20s, and um I don't know when this stopped, but it's up for a lot of my years. People said that I looked younger than I was chronologically. And in my mid 20s, I had a 16-year-old client ask me, "Are you old enough to do this job?"
Mhm. Yeah.
And I looked at her and I was like, "I don't know." And we just made a joke out of it. And I remember thinking at some point I will feel like an adult, right? I'll feel like a professional. I'll feel seasoned. It'll be that I've been on the planet for long enough. I have been in my career long enough that I have this sort of sense of like credibility. Like I have arrived. I have some space under my belt, under my tread, and so that gives me more clout, right?
Yeah.
As a human, right? In anything, and I think that there is some truth to that, and you and I are both in our 40s, and I think that's probably a great decade, right, to be um humans, right? We have been on the planet for long enough to know some things, to experience some things, but yet I mean, knock on can we knock on something? Let's knock on wood. Like we're we're still kind of like able in many ways, right? Mentally, physically. Um and we haven't started the downslide yet, right? We're just
Yeah.
gonna claim that. We're gonna claim that. But I feel as though in hindsight, I might have like wished years away in some ways. You know what I mean? Like, ooh, let's rush to be older or more experienced, where it is somewhat of an internal perception too. And then all of a sudden it's like you reach whatever this magical age is, and then all of a sudden, oh yeah, I I'm tired because I'm old. I don't go out anymore at night because I'm old, right? Like you see these wrinkles, yeah, I'm old.
Yeah.
And we claim that too, right?
Yeah.
And so the identity piece of it is huge.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and like it's so interesting because I think the perspective on age has shifted. So if you Google this, I think it's like what was like a movie from the 80s, maybe Parenthood or something like that. And it was like
You sent me that meme. I
the meme,
remember.
right? Like these people, this is what 40 looked like back then. I'm like, they look like 60. Like,
That.
okay. Because I do think to some extent, there's also this, like, we are aging differently.
Mhm.
And maybe and that might just be physical appearance, right? Like hair dye, highlights, like
Mhm.
Botox, like you name it, right? Maybe that wasn't as big of a trend in the 80s. And so maybe they did look a little more aged. And if we all were like aging more naturally, then maybe we would all look like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
Right. But yeah, like even that perspective, I remember I saw that and I started laughing. So I was like, they were not, you know?
I know. I know. Well, I like to think our clothes are cooler than our parents' clothes when they were our age.
Okay, yeah, but ask your kids in like 30 years what they think of your clothes from, right? Like it changes. But
That's
it
true.
is it's an interesting process. So I try to lean into it, but sometimes I don't love it, you know? Like
Right. Well, and I think you do a great job, and we've talked about this before. I mean, obviously, we've talked about everything under the sun, but like, I think you do a great job. And I think, I was thinking about this morning, and there's, I have a challenge. It's not unique to me, but one of the challenges I face with aging is somewhat tied to where I am geographically. And I think there's, of course, other areas that are similar and even worse than where I am, right? Like, I'm not in LA or Beverly Hills, but like where I live, there is a huge emphasis on appearance. And a lot of people have a lot of disposable income. And there is a, med spa, so to speak, on every corner.
yeah.
And it is the norm to get Botox and fillers and implants, and everybody gets their hair and nails done. I do myself those two things. Um, and many people have plenty of time to spend in the gym or working on their bodies, right? And so there's a huge norm here around looking much younger, right, than one might be. And I moved here eight, yeah, 8 years ago, a little over 8 years ago. And that was kind of like pre wrinkles for me. And like, I also thought, right, as the wife of a functional wellness doctor, I don't know if you and I have talked much with our listeners about the fact that we both tend to be very naturally bent. You and I kind of low toxin, low chemical. Um, I was like dead set against any of this stuff, but I got swept up in it. And I ended up doing 2 solid rounds of Botox myself before I ended up getting sick with a toxin driven autoimmune condition that was completely unrelated to Botox. But I decided I wasn't going to add any toxic load to my already stressed system. So stopped
Right.
that. But it felt when I was doing it, I remember feeling conflicted, right? I remember feeling like this is somewhat, in some ways, like I'm not walking my walk, right? Like I'm not, this is, here I am saying, like, I live a natural lifestyle. I own a functional wellness clinic. I'm married to a functional wellness doctor. Um, and I'm injecting toxins into my skin, botulism toxin to be exact. But I felt pretty, and I felt younger and I looked younger, and I also felt like part of the club, right? Because, the feeling is like, well, that's what everybody's doing here, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And if I walk into a room and I have my natural wrinkles, etc., and 90% of the other women in the room don't, like, that's not fair.
Yeah. Now you look like 80 instead, right? Like now you, but this is the thing. Yes. So, and I think that's the struggle. Right. And I was in the shower earlier thinking about this podcast, and I had a thought of like, what's the line between mm, emphasizing it too much and totally just letting yourself go to the other extreme?
Yes.
Right. Like, I mean, it's okay to want self-care, right? And I don't know. I think that this is the reality. That line is probably very different for everyone. Like, find your place.
Hmm.
right? I have a lot of friends that do Botox regularly and make their appointments, and that what makes them feel good, you know? We'll see in 10, 15 years what the comparison between me and them is. But it is what it is, right? But maybe it is just what is, I don't know, what's the solution to find your value outside of that? Because your looks can change for a lot of reasons.
That's right.
Could be some
Well, and
like freak accident, right? And now there's a lot of
right.
I mean, and I guess that's a larger conversation of how much value do we put on, like, I mean, I earned every freaking wrinkle on my face.
Right.
My scowl marks, like in between my eyes, like that's a lot of like what the F looks I've been giving. I earned that, you know?
The therapist face is what I call it.
Like I just, I don't know. And some of it's like right, me talking myself into a certain
Hmm.
mindset around it. But I am aware that not everyone gets to get wrinkles.
Well, and it reminds me of that old adage, right? Comparison is the thief of joy. We took
Yeah.
a road trip last June. Our first since 2017. Okay. When we drove from Florida to New York State and back to visit family. So we stopped in Atlanta to see you guys. And
Mhm.
then we saw my sister in Asheville. We saw, after that, we hit my husband's father in Pennsylvania, my husband's mother in New York, and then my stepmom and stepsister in New Jersey, and then Rob's 98-year-old grandmother in North Carolina. All along that track,
Mm.
I witnessed beautiful women who did not do the artificial things. And
Mm.
in the, even in, especially now where my husband lives, excuse me, my husband's family lives, it's a rural part of New York. Because New York State, it's not the city, right? We're not talking NYC here. It would have been a different experience. But, you know, Asheville, New York State, right? Rural Pennsylvania, like it would be weird to see someone who did the things that is every, you know, person, right?
Mhm.
Almost here where I live on 30A,
Yeah.
right? Up there, the fashion is different. The way you walk into the world is different. Like I feel overdressed sometimes when I'm around my family. Or, definitely like, do you not a lot of makeup wearing, right? In some of these rural regions, and a lot less pressure on the external appearance, right?
Mm.
Or the norm is different to where you can look at someone and say, "You're beautiful," right? You are beautiful. And there's no sense of you're beautiful because you still look like you are 20 when you're 30, or 30 when you're 40, or 40
Mm.
when you're 60, right?
Yeah.
But you're just beautiful. And, I think about, my stepmom, I call her my mom, and, she has gray hair and wrinkles, and she's the most beautiful woman I've ever seen. And
Mm.
she, like, to your point, like, she earned those. She's wise and she's experienced and she's had ups and downs and highs and lows, and she lives life, man. Um, and and she's gorgeous, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and some of it's that like embracing the you, right? And I think that energy is attractive too,
Yes.
you know? I also think we navigate with anticipation and a fear of people's judgment and commentary that may not actually be true,
Sure.
right? Like you and I have had this conversation because it's been over a year since I last dyed my hair. And
Hmm.
I've talked to you about my weird gray skunk streaks. They go like this, like they grow in some very strange spaces. I do not have that gorgeous gray hair that some people have, like this beautiful full head of gray hair. I've got like, I don't know, like I got struck by lightning streaks. Like it's weird.
No, because I see you differently though. To your
That's right. I
point.
see it as blotchy weirdness and you're like, no, it's fine. But nobody, and I am sure people are like, I think she should dye her gray hair, but nobody said anything to me.
Right.
Nobody's like, and some of the people I hang out with are, very focused on, or just like really put together, I should say. Like their highlights are always on point, their nails are always done, and I come like bumbling along with my like weird streaks and like, but none of them are like, what the hell's wrong with you? I actually don't, and they may have internal thoughts about it. I don't know. But like, I never feel from the people I'm around judged for any of it.
Mhm.
But my perception as I was entering this journey,
Mhm.
right, was very different. And I think in the end, most people don't care. Like, I don't think people care that I'm not doing Botox and that my hair is gray and weird blotchy spaces,
Right.
you know?
Right.
Um, right. And that's how I perceive it. And I know you've been like, I don't see it that way at all.
That's right. And if you remember, thank you very much. I was part of encouraging you to just
You were.
embrace
Yes. Cause whenever I called and was like, I don't know if I can do it, you're like, it's fine, just do it.
it. Yes.
Yes.
I know.
And it's not, I'm in the, I would call it the awkward teen phases of gray hair because like it's not consistent enough to
Right.
be like this beautiful all over like platinum head of hair. It's like awkward in between phase, but I've gotten used to it. So now I don't like register it the same way,
Well,
you
so
know?
I there and then comparison again, right? It's yes, but I don't look the way I used to look, right? So we can compare ourselves to other people, but then we can compare ourselves to ourselves.
Oh yeah.
And that's really hard too, to our younger self, right? The self before wrinkles, the self before gray hair,
Yeah.
right? For me, when I used to have thicker, longer hair, and my hair was one of my best features, and I loved my hair. And I think a combination of a bad dye job plus aging plus this autoimmune stuff I've been battling since 2019 and the drugs I've had to be on to help battle that. Like my hair is not what it used to be and it makes me sad. But to your point, if somebody met me now, would they say, "Oh, your hair looks like shit"? Like
No.
no, I have normal hair. I just look like it's fine. It's whatever.
Yes.
It's fine. Every time I sit in the hairdresser's chair, I'm like, do not let me walk around in this world looking like a ragamuffin. If you need to cut it all off, cut it all off. But just let it. Just make sure I look okay. I don't want to be one of those people who like, well, I had long hair when I was in my 20s, and
Yeah.
you're like 80 and you have this little tiny sprig, and you're like, no,
Yeah.
no, you just
Yeah.
cut it. Just go with it. Right?
Yeah, well, because your hair ages too. And that was novel to me. Like even like after having kids, the consistency of my hair is different. I used to have very like naturally straight hair. Now it's like frizzy and weird spots, but not consistently. And it's different, you
Right.
know? And I think that's part of it too, is yes, there is this comparison. The irony is when you're probably more insecure in life is the
Yeah.
years when you're physically at what maybe would be your ideal. Now I
Right.
think we're mentally like in
Yes.
better places, right? More confident, but like physically your body's like, yeah, but I'm not there, and it's like, man, I took that for granted,
Right.
right? Like I should have leaned into every moment of that. And some dyeing my hair when I was 20 something and I had not a single gray hair on my head. Like what was I doing? I don't know. Um and we
No.
just like it's like we flip it, right? So I think it is, I mean, and I think it comes down to like being mindful of, right? Do what you've got to do to feel good about yourself, right? But like be clear about why
Yeah.
and the realities like
Mhm.
of your existence, right? That at some point like yeah, dye your hair, get the Botox, do all the things, but like recognize what you're doing and that that's not, you know, where where you are naturally or like,
Mhm.
and that's okay,
Mhm.
but I think it's just kind of like I don't know, we just don't accept a lot.
That's true. And not only do we not accept a lot, but we don't celebrate.
Maybe that's what maybe I'm gonna start celebrating, yeah.
So my daughter, she did this cool thing a couple years back. I remember very acutely, we were snuggling, and she was like, "Mommy," she's like, she put her head like on my chest, right? and she put her hand up to like my neck and my like that little soft place where your collarbone kind of
Mhm.
comes together, right? And she goes, I love how soft you are here. She goes, Mommy, some women like to hide their wrinkles, but I love that you let yours show. And I was like,
You're like,
oh
what wrinkles?
my God.
Yeah.
My self-esteem died, but I'm like, but how sweet. Like that's something that she loves about me, right?
Mhm.
And she sees it as a positive.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God, you're touching that place that's kind of like starting to sag, and you notice that it's wrinkly, and that's gross. But
Yeah.
he thought it was beautiful.
Yeah. My kids like to point out every gray hair and every wrinkle. And I think they do it. It's interesting because this is the other thing I'm very mindful of is like, what do we portray to our kids?
Hmm.
I mean, I think my kids have said to me, like, why don't you dye your hair? It's gray. I'm like, because I'm not doing that anymore. Right. Because they're noticing,
Yeah.
and um,
Well, and they probably heard you when you were dyeing it saying things like, oh, I
well,
gotta
this gray hair.
be
Probably.
gray. Right.
Yeah. I mean, and I think to your point, depending on where you live regionally, that push to do certain things is higher,
Yes.
So I mean, I've had conversations with people where they're like, oh no, I wouldn't let a gray hair grow at all. I'm going to dye that like every 3 weeks. I'm there. And I get it. Right. Cause like, yes, I was doing that. um, but it's also a lot of time and money commitment. And I kind of sit with, well, what else would I rather do? I don't really like sitting in the salon chair getting my hair dyed every 3 weeks to a month. It's not
Right.
actually fun for me. It's like, ugh. So like, what else can I do with that?
Hmm.
You know? So I think it's just kind of switching, but my kids are very aware of it. But a lot of it is also like, okay, so what do I want them to learn about this? Because like your body's going to change, you're going to age. Not all of it is enjoyable,
Hmm.
right? Like I'm not going to lie and be like, it's all great. No, some of it's like that. No one told me that was going to happen. Like, what is that, right? There's a lot we're not told, which I think is the other part of it, right? But I think it's just kind of being like, it's inevitable. So like, what are you going to do? Right? There's like, what is the like the spheres of control, right? What's in my control, what's not in my control.
You're
Um,
being a therapist again. Did you know that, by the way?
did I what?
You're being a therapist right now.
Oh,
It's
God.
okay. Go with it. I'm just like pointing it out. I,
It
I'm
happens.
I'm ready for this. I'm
Yeah,
here.
right. And certain things are not in our control. And yes, there are things with like, beauty products and medical interventions that we can control it. Fine, go for it. But at some point, you can only intervene so much.
Right.
Like you can't be like 90 and have the face of a 20-year-old. The rest of your body, like, are you going to like tighten up everything? Can you do that? Can you tighten up like all your
I mean,
like your
probably.
arms? Because like
Oh,
your skin's gonna sag and wrinkle.
you can tighten up your arms, man. They can do all kinds of stuff.
Can you do like a full body skin lift? But you know what I mean?
Oh,
Like at some point, some part of your body is going to show age. Like it just can't not.
I know. Listen, we watched Mamma Mia 2 the other night. Have you
Okay.
seen that?
No. So I have no idea where you're going with this.
Well, Cher plays a role,
Ah, okay.
and I had not seen Cher in a long time. And I ended up Googling, I cannot remember how old Cher is, but in this movie, she played a grandmother. She played Meryl Streep's mother.
Uh-huh. They look almost the same.
She looked like she was younger in the movie.
They're 77 years old.
Okay, 77. This woman, I mean, in this movie, she looked like she was 25,
Yeah.
35.
Yeah.
I don't know where I was going with that. Maybe
Yeah.
just that you can do a lot of stuff if you have the
But
time.
even that, like, doesn't that kind of like warp your sense of, I mean, and this is, I think too, like you look at someone like J-Lo, what is she like 50 something? She like is aging in reverse, which is baffling to me, right? But that's not the norm because when you go like that's also her job, unfortunately,
Uh,
is very like my job, like, I don't know, I get gray. Do I just get wiser? Maybe people are like, oh, she must know more because she's an aging therapist. And I had the same problem when I started. I looked young. I looked like the kids I worked with,
right.
right? Um, but like her appearance is very much tied to her livelihood, right?
Right.
Um, but you start to see things like that and you're like, oh, that's confusing to me. Like,
Uh-huh.
how come she can look like that? How do I get that? Right? I think it's a mixture of like whatever she does, take care of herself, and like maybe genetics. Some people do age differently at different,
Yes,
durations.
that's right.
But yeah, it's just such a I don't know, it's such a mind fuck. And there's I was having this conversation with someone a while ago. We're talking about beauty standards, and I was like, but it's all a business. If
Hmm.
I can make you feel like you need this serum, this cream, this injection, this surgery, this whatever, like somebody's making money off of you.
Oh, yes.
But when
A
you
lot.
look at it like that, right, there's like a driving force behind it.
Yes.
And if we all just don't play, what
Eh,
happens? I mean, and that's like, right, how do you get everyone? But like, if you
right.
don't play, like what happens? Like you're convincing me that I need this cream because wrinkles are like, that's the other thing, right? Is there's like a marketing
Mhm.
component to the messages we get,
Yeah,
and
that's
people
the
fall into it.
camp where we even go viral if you keep talking against the major, I guess, the people who are making these products.
Maybe. Well, if they can create something natural and healthy, then go for it. Products.
Well, and okay, so let's speak to that. Let's talk about that for a minute. What are some of the things that you do that are natural and healthy to support graceful aging, Claudia?
For internal organs and stuff, I take supplements and support my system that way. Um,
High quality, not just off the counter anywhere, but through a physician
correct.
doctor, yeah,
Yeah,
a
yeah,
whole
yeah.
doctor.
Yeah, I work with a naturopath and all that stuff.
Mhm.
I would like to say I eat well, and I do
Mhm.
realistically, but I also enjoy life because again, you live once. So I think that's a balance, right? And I do use products, but in my journey with my gray hair, I have decreased a lot of those too. Right. I use like castor oil or
Mhm.
tallow, or I mean, a lot of that stuff's like all I wash my face with olive oil. Like it's in my kitchen and I mix it with some essential oils and so like I've kind of decreased a lot of the products because it
Yeah.
was confusing to me and mind boggling. And when someone says, here's your 12-step morning routine, I like short circuit and I'm like,
Yeah.
water? Like, why do I need this much shit in the morning? Like, and I was like, I don't feel like I need this many products. It's a lot to keep up with. So I don't know. I mean, you know what? I might just be like some weird science experiment. We can like track me every 10 years, be like, it was not working for you. I don't know, but like,
No, I love that. My mom, who I was just saying is so beautiful, she swears by coconut oil. I mean, just so much like she uses it in her hair. I don't know for sure, but I would guess she probably uses it on her skin too. She loves to be outside. And she lives in New Jersey, and so it's pretty. She's at the shore, New Jersey shore, so she's both like sun and wind, but also cold too.
Mhm.
So like that moisturizing, I think is so key, right?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I wash my face with avocado oil too. I do. There's some brands that I like. I like the what is that one? Naked and Thriving. I like.
Mhm.
I like doTERRA's skincare a lot. Um, I guess those are the two brands that I'm really feeling right now as far as serums and lotions and things you can put on your skin. I do think moisturizing, like whatever you're using, right? Whether it's an oil, like an olive oil or coconut oil or avocado oil, or more of like a serum based stuff
Yeah.
is pretty key. And then I think that's one of those things I think we should teach our kids, you know what I mean? Like moisturize earlier. Like my daughter's like, "Mommy, your skin's so soft." And I'm like,
Mm.
"Listen, sister, like I put a lot of stuff on my skin all the time." And that's something that my mom modeled for me, growing up is like just like a lot of moisturizing, like keeping that moisture in your skin, but and your hair too, probably, right? Like I probably could be better with that, but because we do lose so much of that moisture as we age, right? Regardless of our physical climate. And then
Yeah.
with these tools, you gave me this cool little,
The red light guy.
yes, this little like
Yeah.
laser wand. Was that for Christmas you gave me that? Or for my birthday?
It
That
was
was for Christmas, I
just
think.
rando. Yeah, I do like red light therapy. I have a red light therapy machine that I use for a lot of things. I use it on my face, but I also use it like I have shoulder issues, right? So I use it on my shoulder when the inflammation gets tricky
Mhm.
there, or
Yep.
like when Ansley had to have her tongue tie, she had to sit in front of it. So kind of does like internal healing of your cells and reduces inflammation. So I use that for a lot of things.
Mhm.
Um,
We both also use collagen
mhm.
powder, collagen, a good quality collagen powder in our coffee.
Yeah, I like the bamboo. I use Bamboo Earth products and I like them. And I think you're right about the moisture thing. And I've also what I've recently learned, um, which I didn't know this, maybe you did, right? A lot of the products we use are like moisture stripping. So like a lot of the face soaps and stuff, which is why the oil face wash works because it's cleansing without removing your natural oils. But I think about like how much of our years do we spend stripping our oils?
Right.
And then you wonder why I'm 45 and I've got like no oil left in my skin, you know?
All
Um,
down.
what happened? Yeah. So I don't know. There's a lot of interesting things, but I mean, because I think in the end, I don't smoke, like that helps, like things like that, but I think like in the end, it's a gamble. Like, I don't know, you get to like 95 and doesn't everyone get wrinkly at 90? You know what I mean? Like at some point you can try to fight the battle, delay it, but right at some point, do you just like
Right.
eat in? I also had this thought. This is a weird one, but I'll throw it out there. I was like, maybe it's just the initial stages that are harder. Like once you've got a ton of wrinkles on your face, like a 90 something year old, at
Right.
that point they don't stand up. It's just and
Right.
maybe you don't like it, but like then are you just like, now they all blend,
Right.
right? I
I
don't
think
know if that's
so. I
true.
think well, I think
It
it is.
is.
What did you call the you're the teen in the teenage awkward teenager phase of your hair? I think
Yeah.
that's right. When we first start losing that elasticity in our skin, or we first start like finding those little small wrinkles, or yeah, our hair does start changing. That this like 35 to maybe I don't know when does it stop? When are we like truly I don't know when does the aging process when does it get easier? I
I
don't
think
know.
it's like you die. Like you age and you know what I mean? I don't know, that was morbid, but like you don't, I mean, this is the process.
Right.
And
Yeah.
you're aging your whole life, like when you were 4 to 12 to, I mean, there was changes, right? But those are celebrated more. And I think the changes past 30, 40, I don't know, pick an age, are not celebrated. And
So
maybe that's the difference.
well, on my birthday, we went to this little free cooking class, which there's a little Williams Sonoma shop, like just maybe 15 minutes down the road from where we live, and they're doing like a free. I don't know if they do it every month, but this month, a free little cooking class every Sunday morning at 11. And my birthday was on a Sunday, and we went to this little cooking class. They taught you how to make a bundt cake, and it was just like something cute to do as a family at 11 o'clock on a Sunday morning. And there's a handful of people there, and one of the gals, I said something like, "It's my birthday," and because I have decided that I'm going to celebrate myself, and she goes, "Oh, I stopped count," or she said something about how old are you, and I said 43, and she said, "I stopped counting at 29." And I said, "Oh, no." I said, "Not me." I said, "I've been wrestling with some health issues for the past few years. And to me, I'm celebrating every moment I have on this planet with gratitude." And she like paused and she looked at me and she goes, "I'm going home and telling my husband I'm celebrating too."
I love it.
Great. And I was like, "Yes." And they put like this little candle in my bundt cake. It was so cute. And I ate my bundt cake with white sugar and gluten in it, and it was yummy.
And you just changed someone's perspective, right? But that's the thing. I mean, I know people in my world too that when their birthday comes around, it's like with dread. And I very much like my birthday. I get to do what I want to do. It's a great day. I'm even like, let's do the whole month. Like, I love it. And I think, but again, I am very aware that not everyone gets their next birthday,
Mhm. Yeah.
right? And so I don't understand this idea of dreading it. Like, I don't know, lean in, like just lean into the whole experience, you know?
Okay, good. So what are the kernels of wisdom, right? I mean, obviously, like
Don't know.
right? I mean, well, when we haven't even talked about the mind. I mean, but
Oh,
we've just
yeah.
the physical, which is so tied in with our mind because of our self-esteem and our self-perception and our insecurities, like you mentioned, like in a crowd, or how our clients perceive us, right? How our children perceive us,
How we were raised to think about.
we were raised, what our
Yeah.
culture reflects to us as to how we're supposed to look and act, right? Um, but so what are some kernels, right? We said, okay, celebrate, just celebrate where you are. What
Yeah.
else? What would our takeaways be for folks?
Yeah, I think it's getting comfortable being uncomfortable, maybe.
I like that so
Like
much.
getting uncomfortable or getting comfortable with the fact that there is just ongoing change. And I think you talked about it earlier, right? Like letting go of the comparison to who you were. You cannot compare your 20-year-old self, mentally as well, like mentally, emotionally, like I don't know if I want to if I want to embrace all parts of 20-year-old Claudia, right? Like some of that needed to go, and that's okay. I think it's not doing that comparison. Oh, I used to be. And control what you can. And again, for whatever, everyone's going to feel different about what that means. Like someone's going to hear this and be like, perfect, I'm making a Botox appointment tomorrow.
Exactly.
Fine, like do you, right? But do it maybe for you, not because that's what's expected of you,
Or be conscious, right? Be
right?
conscious.
Yeah, like I'm growing out my gray hair and I get people are like, I'm not doing that. Then don't. That's cool. But are you like, do it because that fits for you and what you want, not because you feel like you have to dye your hair every 3 weeks, right? Um, I don't know. I feel like as you get older, you should lean into not having to care so much what people think about you. And yet we still do, you know? So I think it's just getting comfortable with you and maybe releasing a little bit, because a lot of what we react to, there's a realities of like cognitive decline potentially and all that, but that's not what people are reacting to when they get older.
Mhm.
People are reacting to physicalities, right? And I think maybe getting a healthy detachment,
Yes.
like
How would you define detachment? Good word.
yeah, you have a physical self, but that is not the whole self.
Mhm.
It is it's only the part that people see, but it's not even accurate sometimes.
And this is a process, right? And it's a work in the world and a journey, mental, psychological, sometimes spiritual, right? This idea of like I can see reality, I can name reality, and I don't have to judge reality as being negative, right? That's
Mm-hmm.
hard. I mean, how hard is that?
Yeah.
You find that new wrinkle or that first wrinkle, or you know, we recognize that there's yeah, we've lost something that we
Mm.
had that we valued in our appearance. Um
But
to
we also
not
gain things, and that's what we don't focus on.
right.
Yes, I've lost elasticity and gained wrinkles, but I've also gained life experience,
Mhm.
right? I've gained a better understanding of myself. I've gained
Yeah.
the ability to set boundaries better. I've gained all these things that I did not have when I was youthful and, floating around the world.
Mhm.
So, but we don't notice that aging is always about a deficit.
Right.
I'm losing this, I'm losing that. It's not always about what you gained. And I think that's where we need to flip it a little.
I agree with you. And that goes back to what you said about the cultural component, right? That perhaps in cultures who revere the elderly, right? You mentioned, cultures that maybe live with multiple generations under one roof, where like the older generation is seen as being wise and to be respected and honored and cared for. And so then there's almost like a reverence around it, right?
Mm.
As one moves into and we see this sometimes in European cultures or Middle Eastern cultures, or I think some Hispanic cultures as well. And um I remember when I was doing my yoga teacher training, there's this concept of like maiden, mother, and crone, right? And maiden is like the young woman. The mother, obviously, is women our age and stage of lives. And then the crone, right? I think that's a weird name, but like it's a weird word, but it's like this, it is a wise, an elder kind of, this I'm past my childbearing years, but it also carries this connotation of like I'm past the bullshit, and I
Yeah.
have the wisdom that comes with life experience that people come to me for, right? People, the maiden and the mother come before the crone to receive nurturing and to receive wisdom and guidance and direction.
Yeah.
And like that's a beautiful journey to move through those stages of life and into that position. And God, like, please, can we all be so lucky to make it to that
Yeah.
age? We can have that um, a number of years behind us, and if we could also do it, getting better as we age, right? Getting more wise, getting more perspective, getting softer in the right ways and tougher in the right ways without like getting bitter, hardened, or mean, or jaded or traumatized without being able to recover, from this life that we live. That would be a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Life goals.
Hashtag life goals.
I'll see you on the crone side. I don't like
Yeah.
I'm gonna change the title when I get there. I don't like it.
Yeah, I know, right? What is that about? I don't know. We'll have to
Can I
look.
be like a wise elder? Why is I gotta be a crone?
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah.
It's not
And it
really.
would be interesting to have like a man's perspective because I think their perspective on aging is very different. The pressures are different. It feels different. I don't know. Maybe it doesn't feel that different anymore. I don't know, but it would be interesting.
That's a really good point.
This is from our perspective, people. So that's
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, my husband feels he doesn't seem to be bothered by it at all.
Hmm.
I don't think he cares one way or another. But it's interesting. He has a 98-year-old grandmother. At 53, he's like, "Shut a spring chicken, man."
Yeah. 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 He's got good genes.
Good genes, and he feels good, and he takes care of himself, and he's got a hot young wife.
He- So he's doing pretty good. He's got all the things. Yeah.
I'm kidding. But yes, okay, good. So I love those takeaways. No comparison unless we're comparing ourselves to maybe a image of our best selves, right? A wise self that we want to aspire to be.
Yeah. I think it's a self acceptance of who you are in this moment,
Hmm.
right? Whatever that is, and however you want to express that is fine. But again, make sure you're also leaning into who you are in this moment and not just running from it endlessly because you can't keep running. At some point, you hit a wall, it catches up,
Yes,
you
you're
know.
so you crone you
Wise
you.
elder, I'm your elder, whole 2 years older. This is what it gets you. Just
I
kidding.
will always be younger than you.
That is true.
We just spent an hour talking about we should embrace aging, and then I end it with like, but nana nana boo boo, I'm younger than you.
And I will always be your wise elder. So
But I'm bum.
I'll be your old crone. Oh, so we've solved nothing, but those were our thoughts on aging.
As usual. Hmm.
Do with it what you will. But we're in it too, right? And that's the other reality. It's like we're not immune from this. We're not outside of it. Like we're experiencing the same process too. So it's just kind of our thoughts on it, and you probably like we've gone back and forth on it, right? Like lean into it, don't lean into it, don't we're part of the experience too. Yeah.
I love what you said about finding the path that's right for each individual person and finding what does that mean to you, that graceful, right? What am I going to do to try to keep myself, my body, my mind, my heart at its best, but acknowledge that time passes and that things do change with time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Love it.
Oh, me too. We'll
Well,
leave
hey,
it
guess
there.
what? Next Friday, this time, I will be in your house.
I know we'll do this in person.
It was so fun.
Yeah. We'll do
And
we'll be in the same room.
wow, that'll be amazing.
Yeah. You can see how I orchestrate all this behind the scenes. It's not.
I love it. Yeah, in the green room.
Yeah.
All right,
All
should we
right.
today?
What?
Should we sign off for today?
Yeah. I think we're good. I think we've I think we've left everyone with our perspective. They're like, we got it.
Our task is complete.
It is complete. That's it. Yeah, do with it what you will. But hopefully we gave people something to think about.
Thanks everybody for listening. If you want to follow Claudia, you can find her at mightyoakparenting.com and Claudia Glassman. Are you .com on that one too?
.com.
ClaudiaGlassman.com. You can find me at robandkatietruax.com. And we're on Instagram too. All of us, all three of us.
All three of us. Yes, yes, we are. All right. Well, have a good one, everyone.